Hey guys, welcome back to my channel and another video. If you are new here, my name is Nicole. For anyone who is unaware or cannot tell, I am based in Australia. As we all know, it's currently October, which means it's Halloween. In Australia, Halloween is not really a big deal or something that we celebrate at all. It's something that is becoming a little bit more popular, and I do just say a little, like it's still not a big thing. It's a lot bigger than it was when I was growing up. I'm currently in my 30s, so like 15, 20 years ago, not a thing. And it's not really something that I have ever participated in. I have at most gotten myself little like pumpkin twinkly lights on my bookshelf. Last year I decided to get myself some actual pumpkins and some lights, and this is as much as Halloween touches my bookshelf or my house or my life. This year in October I did decide that I wanted to do a little bit more for Halloween, and more so just with my reading and like the books that I'm picking up. So I did kind of make it a bit more of my mission to read some more, I guess, Halloween-ish style books for the spooky season. And I also thought I could just do a little bit of a recommendation video for books that you can look to pick up in this spooky season if you don't know where to start. And I did also want to preface this by saying that this video is not going to contain any recommendations of books that are like horror or thriller based Halloween reads. So if you're someone who's come here looking for those types of books and recommendations, I'm really sorry, this is not going to be the video for you. I am not a reader who likes to enjoy those types of books. So yeah, if you're looking for like spooky horror, like the grotesque side of Halloween and the creepy side, this is not the video for you. I'm not going to be doing those types of book recommendations because I'm not that type of reader. I've gone for the cutesy rom-com witchy novels and shapeshifter werewolf novels that are cute little romance reads. That's like the theme and like concept of this video. But if you are interested in seeing, I guess, some more rom-com, sweet, fun, just homey, good Halloween reads that we can read this spooky season, then feel free to keep watching. But I'm just getting straight into these books. The first one that I have on the list is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is a novel that came out this year. Full disclaimer, this is actually a special edition of the book. It was just easier to grab than the paperback because I would have to disrupt more of my shelves. So this is Ali Hazelwood's first venture into like the paranormal side of things. She's normally like a rom-com author. And this book focuses on our main character, I hate her name, Misery. And she is actually a vampire, and she is the daughter of, I'm just gonna say, the head vampire. And then we also have our other main character, Lo, and he is like the head alpha werewolf of the werewolf pack. So we basically live in a society where everyone knows about like just werewolves and vampires, and the humans and the vampires have this agreement that essentially the vampires pick a vampire child and send it to the humans, and the humans pick a human child to send it to the vampire, where they live for 8 years, and it's this goodwill gesture. But it's also a, if you do anything to harm any of our people, we will kill this child that you've sent to us in good faith. So it's a bit of a threat to keep peace between their people, essentially. Misery was chosen as, I guess, the vampire sacrificial child, and she grew up in the human world. So she's in this really odd place of, she's a vampire, but she doesn't fit into vampire society. But she also isn't a human. She doesn't fit into human society. What happens is that a new alpha takes over the werewolf pact, and a new human becomes in control of the humans, and they decide to end the agreement between the humans and the vampires. So the vampires, who are a bit of a minority group, are scrambling to hold on to their power and their safety in society, and they decide to make a pact with the werewolves that they are going to marry off a werewolf and a vampire together. They're going to do this pact with the werewolves instead, but it becomes an arranged marriage. And poor Misery is the sacrificial lamb again. So she has to go and live with the werewolves, and she only agrees to it because her best friend has gone missing, and the only clue into her disappearance that she has is this name of this male called Lo, and Lo happens to be the leader of the werewolves. So she agrees to this arranged marriage, and it's just about her living with the werewolves and finding out what's going on with her best friend. I had a great time with it. It was definitely an interesting take and different take on vampires and werewolves. I did enjoy it for the most part. I think it's a really cool, fun read. There's going to be a sequel she has announced. It's focusing, I think, on the best friend. Yeah, this is one kind of vampire werewolf read that you can read this Halloween. And then the next set of books are actually all part of a series. So I'm going to talk about all three of them together. Some of these books are in series, and some of them I've just been lazy and grabbed the first book. So the next series is the Supernatural single series by April Asher. The first book in the series is Not the Witch You Wed, which focuses on Violet and Lincoln, We then have Not Your Ex's Hexes, which focuses on Damien and Rose. And then we focus on Not Your Crush's Cauldron, which is the third book, which focuses on Violet and Bax. So these three books I have spoken a lot on my channel this October because I've just currently read Not Your Crush's Cauldron because it was on my October TBR. So this focuses on these three triplets, obviously Violet, Rose, and Olive, and it's just about them finding love because they're single gals, they're single witches, their grandmother's the primer, and we live in a modern society where everyone knows about supernatural beings. So that's like werewolves, demons, angels, shifters, so like werewolves, etc. Every other sort of animal you could shift into, wizards probably, I think I've said all of them. And it's just like cute little rom-coms about these three witches finding love with a werewolf shifter, a half demon, and a guardian angel. And it's a great time. This one is Violet and Lincoln's story. So Violet is the eldest out of the three. She doesn't have any magical powers and then discovers that she actually does have magical powers. Her kind of childhood boyfriend who kind of left her and she never knew why, so she's got resentment towards him, he's the alpha wolf shifter. This is like a second chance romance because their relationship comes back. And then we focus on the sequel, which is for Rose and Damien, who's the half demon. Rose was the triplet that was being raised to be the next primer because Violet didn't have magic, and then her magic has appeared in the first novel. So Rose steps down and now she's trying to figure out who the hell she is because she's always sort of just known since Violet's magic never appeared that as the next second eldest, it was her job to take over being primer, and her grandmother was always training her for that. So now that she's no longer the primer, she doesn't know what to do with herself. So she takes it upon herself to try out literally every single job that she can to try and find what her interests are. Along the way, she meets the veterinarian Damien because she does some illegal stuff and has to do community service there. He's half demon. This is probably my least favorite out of the three, to be honest. And then the third book is Not Your Crush's Cauldron, which focuses on the youngest triplet, which is Olive, and Bax, who's a guardian angel. She makes herself this Dare I Docket list, which is a list of things to push her out of her comfort zone. And this puts her on the radar of the guardian angels because she is the primer's granddaughter. They decide that because of who she is, that she needs protection and they can't just sit and wait to see whether things get worse for her. They need to immediately put someone on her, and Baz is picked because his current last sort of jobs with them hasn't gone very well, so he needs to prove himself. He also happens to be Olive's roommate, but this was probably my favorite out of the three. Probably around 3.5 4-star reads, all of these ones. The next series, I've only picked one, but I recommend all three of them. It's the Belladonna series by Adeline Grace, which I also haven't shut up about on my channel. So this features Belladonna, the sequel Foxglove, and then the third book, which is Wisteria. Wisteria has just come out. I only started reading these three books this year, but we focus on our main character, Signa, who was orphaned from since she was a baby. She lived with her grandmother, was raised by her grandmother until around the age of 10, and then her grandmother tragically passed away, and then basically started a revolving door of Signa being passed along to different guardians within the family because anyone that looked after her got paid out of her estate, and they wanted to care for her purely so they could get the money, but not because they wanted to look after her well-being. But every single guardian ends up dying, and there's all this suspicion around Signa because everyone that looks after her dies, so no one really wants to take her in, and she ends up being taken in by the Hawthorns, who's the mother and I guess the mistress of the house has just passed away the year prior, and then the daughter is also suffering from this mysterious illness that no one knows what it is. Signa can also see death and actually strikes up a relationship with him, and the first two stories focus on her and her journey, and then the third book focuses on another character. These books were all 4-star reads for me. I had a great time with them. They're kind of like gothic romance sort of novels. They're set in like the Victorian era or something like that. It's really cool. It's a really great concept. We have characters like fate and life, death, chaos. It's a really interesting take on it, and I had a fantastic time with it. I just think it's a really kind of cool book to read just like at Halloween. It's not so much like the spooky vibes, but it's got like the gothic kind of those creepy vibes for Halloween, and I just think it would be a really great series to pick up during this time period if you haven't read it yet. And then we're kind of going to a different like theme for Halloween. The next two books are part of a series, and that is the Assistant to the Villain series by Hannah Nicole Mayer, which obviously is the first book, Assistant to the Villain, and then the sequel, Apprentice to the Villain. So these books focus on, if you can't tell, the villain, hence why I've picked it for Halloween. They're a little bit more lighthearted. They're kind of an awkward one to describe because they feel YA, but they're written about older characters, so it's like this really kind of almost awkward vibes. But we focus on our main character, Evie, and she she finds herself suddenly without a job. Her father's come down with this mysterious illness in this fantasy world. And one day whilst out, she runs into the villain who saves her and offers her a job, and she takes him up on it, and it's just about her working for him. It's funny to an extent. I preferred assistant to the villain to apprentice to the villain. I didn't have as good of a time with this one as I did with the first one, but it's just like an interesting take to have a book from the villain's perspective. I don't think he's that much of a villain, in my opinion. I think we're gonna turn around and find out that he's more of a hero and the villain is the king. But it's just an interesting take on this concept, and having a book sort of from like the villain's point of view. He does have a point of view in this book, but it's just fun, it's lighthearted, and it's an easy read to, you know, be a bit of a palate cleanser if you're looking at doing some kind of darker Halloween reads and you just need something to break it up. We might go into the last sort of like more romancy kind of Halloween read that I have, and that is The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. Once again, this is the special edition copy of it. So this story focuses on our main character, Mackenzie. She is a werewolf and she is a beta, and she is a doctor and she works at an emergency department. Grandmother is really quite set on getting her to settle down, meet another werewolf, and give her werewolf babies. But Mackenzie is far more interested in her job and her career. So to get her grandmother off her back, she lies and says that she's currently dating someone. When she's pressed for a name and details, in walks another doctor, Noah. She says, oh yeah, it's Noah. So she has to get Noah to agree to be her fake boyfriend. What she doesn't know is that Noah is also a werewolf, but he's actually an alpha werewolf. He's been hiding the fact that he's an alpha because in this society, alpha werewolves are looked down upon, told that if they don't have a mate, they're aggressive, watch out for them. He has like this drug that can like suppress the fact that he's an alpha. He does this in order to get the job because he's like head of the emergency department. Somebody leaks to the hospital board that he is an alpha, and because Mackenzie needs him to be her fake boyfriend, he says, I will be your fake boyfriend if you pretend to be my fake mate for the hospital board, because I'm in threat of potentially losing my job because I've lied about the fact that I'm an alpha. But if I have a mate, that means that I'm not going to be seen as a threat and I won't lose my job or my position that I've worked so hard to do. She agrees to it. So they have to go around pretending to be mates. But obviously because they're spending so much time together to make it believable that they're mates, they end up falling for one another. And it was a really cute read. I rated it 4.5 stars. At the moment, there is only one book, but Lana has announced that she is coming out with a sequel, so I'm super excited about that. But this is just like a different take on the whole werewolf romances. So really, it's just about whatever vibe you want for Halloween. I definitely would recommend this one. I had a great time with it. I loved it. I thought it was adorable. I did prefer it to Bride. That's just my 2 cents on that. And then let's go into just some like cozy fantasy reads. So the first series I have is probably going to come as like no surprise that I put this on here, but that is the Divine Rivals series by Rebecca Ross, which features Divine Rivals and then the sequel Ruthless Vows. This is a duology. These are both books. You probably know about this because the internet was obsessed with Divine Rivals. I do think I preferred Divine Rivals to Ruthless Vows, but we do focus on our 2 main characters, Iris and Roman. Both Iris and Roman have these magical typewriters that you send a letter, you put it in a cupboard, and it sends it to someone else who owns the magical typewriter. Iris doesn't realize that every time she's sending these messages out, she thinks they're going to her brother, but they're actually going to Roman, and they are both actually working for the same newspaper company, but they're rivals competing for the same job. And there's also this war going on with the gods at the same time that they're reporting on. Iris's brother actually goes missing, so she decides to jump ship, up going and working for the competing paper company because they need people to send to the war front, and she volunteers to go because she wants to find her brother. So she gets sent, and Roman panics because he's in love with her but doesn't know how to tell her, and also quits his job and goes to the front lines to protect her and make sure she's okay. It's just a story about their little romance, this war with the gods. I kind of wish we got a little bit more of the war on the gods. It was all resolved a little bit too quickly for my liking, but it was just a really cool, fun, cozy fantasy read that I had a great time with this year. So if you want those vibes for Halloween, pick this up. And then the second last series I'm going to talk about is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia Fairies by Heather Fawcett. This is the first book in this series. The sequel is Emily Wilde and the Map of the Other Lands. I haven't read that one, hence why I'm not showing it. It is on my to read list for for October. This book series is set in like the early 1900s, and we focus on our main character, obviously Emily Wilde. She's a scholar and she focuses on fairies, and not the nice, cute little cutesy fairies that we know in like TV shows with wings and they fly around. They're really nice, like Tinkerbell. But like, I'm talking like fairies that are gonna fuck you up essentially. She's going around to different towns in Europe to put together an encyclopedia on the different types of fairies and the different types of towns. And she's almost got her encyclopedia finished, but she's got to go to this one last town. And she goes to this town to try and learn more about the fairy lore, and her competitor, Wendell Bamblebee, also rocks up, and they have like a little bit of a romance together, and he also sort of helps her out with the fairies, but he's very charismatic and she can't work out why. But she gets to learn a bit more about him, a bit more about the fairy world. And then we have the sequel, which is Emily Wilde and the Map of the Other Lands, and that's just continuing on the story. We're going to learn more about, I guess we're putting together a fairy map now. These are just cute little cozy fantasy reads. Like, I'm just giving you other options that aren't, you know, werewolves and vampires and witches. Got to give you the fairy option too, in case that's what your vibes are. And I didn't want to go for the stereotypical A Court of Thorns and Roses, but obviously you can read that if that's more your interest in fairies. But this is just a different take on fairies with humans. And then I feel like you can't do a spooky season read recommendations video and not put Harry Potter on it. I have just picked up the first book, but they're all there if you need them. So obviously it's Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone by J.K. Rowling. This is the first book in the Harry Potter series. If you happen to not know what Harry Potter is, focus on our main character, Harry Potter, who finds out that he is a wizard at the age of 11, and he gets sent to England's magical school, Hogwarts, and it's all just about his journey discovering that he's a wizard. He becomes best friends with Ron and Hermione, and they have adventures, and it turns out there's this evil wizard called Lord Voldemort who's trying to kill him because you couldn't kill him when he was a baby, so better come back when he's 11. But he's a little bit famous because he was the person who managed to kill Lord Voldemort even though he was a baby and he did nothing. It was actually what his mum did. I feel like October is the perfect time to pick up Harry Potter. I haven't read this in a long while, and I definitely feel like I am due for a reread. I also feel like you could literally just pick up the first book. You don't have to commit to the full 7 books because it is a lot, but you could just read the first book, and I feel like that would give you enough of the Halloween vibes because Halloween is also mentioned in this book, and it's a cool, cute, fun fantasy read. I just couldn't not put Harry Potter on this recommendations video. Okay, I've given you like 8 different series. Some of them are standalones that you could read this spooky season. If you guys have any other like spooky season reads that you would also recommend, please let me know because I would love to read some more. I've started reading some witchy novels this month and I'm having a great time with it, but I would love to read some more. But I would also start liking to put together a bit of a list for me to read next year. So if you do have any spooky Halloween reads, please let me know. Or if you've got any like thriller Halloween reads, also let me know because I'd be interested in picking some up next year. I will see you guys next week for another video. Bye.